Welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. This week's headlines: Sudan expels food aid officials as conflict escalates, Vietnam strengthens ties to Russia and China, Nigeria rejects claims of Christian genocide, US cuts key interest rate in bid to boost job market, Maldives to make some smoking illegal. Starting with politics, Tanzanian president wins disputed election. President Hassan was reported to have won 98% of the vote, which was marred by violence amid protests over the exclusion of rival candidates. After the protests broke out, the government shut down the internet, imposed a curfew and deployed the military to the streets. The ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi or CCM party, which has been in power since independence in 1961. Dutch election. Winners and losers. The Netherlands' 2025 election ended in upheaval, but no clear direction. Centrist Liberal D66, led by 38-year-old Rob Jetten, emerged as the biggest winner with a record 26 seats after a late surge, positioning him as the likely next Prime Minister. His main rival, far-right leader Geert Wilders, saw his Party for Freedom lose 11 seats, but vowed to keep fighting from opposition. The centre-right VVD and Christian Democrats also held steady. Cameroon post-election protests. At 92, Paul Biya has spent nearly half his years as president, and his re-election for an 8th term would keep him in office until he's nearly 100. Biya's former spokesman-turned-challenger Issa Bakary also claims to have won. Protests disrupted cities and drew international condemnation over the violent suppression of demonstrations and arbitrary arrests. Vietnam strengthens its ties to Russia, China, and North Korea. Vietnam was close to buying military transport planes from the US in 2024, but instead, it has returned to purchasing weapons from Russia, ordering $8 billion worth of fighter jets and air defense systems, and therefore avoiding US sanctions. As a result of Hanoi's frustration with unpredictable US tariffs and policies, the country is coming closer to Moscow, Beijing, and Pyongyang. Nigeria rejects claims of Christian genocide as US considers military action. Nigeria called the allegations false and dangerous, saying that terror groups like Boko Haram and ISIL attack people of all faiths, while President Tinubu's government said it would accept US help only if Nigeria's sovereignty is respected. Moving to stories in conflict, Lebanon says army to confront Israeli forces after deadly incursion. President Aoun's instruction came after Israeli forces crossed their shared border and killed a municipal worker during a raid. Israel has threatened to step up its attacks against Hezbollah. Despite the ceasefire, Israel maintains troops in southern Lebanon and has kept up regular strikes as it accused the Lebanese government of delaying efforts to dismantle Hezbollah. Iran rearms with China's help, despite UN sanctions. European intelligence sources report that around 2,000 tons of sodium perchlorate, which is a key ingredient for missile fuel, have been shipped from Chinese ports to Iran since late September, with suggestions Iran is rebuilding its ballistic missile program with help from China, despite UN sanctions reimposed in September that banned such activity. Sudan's military expels top UN food aid officials as conflict escalates. 2 senior World Food Programme officials were expelled amid escalating famine and conflict following the Rapid Support Forces capture of El Fasher in Darfur. The WFP called the move devastating as 24 million face acute hunger, while reports of mass killings and atrocities raise fears of renewed ethnic violence in the region. 130 killed in Rio's largest ever police raid, ahead of COP30 hosting. At least 130 people were killed in a major police operation targeting the Red Command Gang in Rio de Janeiro's northern suburbs. The raid has drawn criticism from human rights groups, including the UN Human Rights Office and Brazilian President Lula. Trump says she vowed no action on Taiwan during his presidency. President Trump has claimed that his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, assured him that Beijing will not pursue its long-standing objective of uniting Taiwan with mainland China while he is in office. He has openly said, and his people have openly said at meetings, "We would never do anything while President Trump is president, because they know the consequences," Trump said in an interview. Turning to economics, US and China strike small trade deal. President Trump says he has struck a deal with China's Xi to reduce tariffs on Beijing in exchange for resumed US soybean purchases. The total combined tariff rate on Chinese goods will be cut to 47% from 57%, but it is unclear if China will continue its halting of importing US coal, accounting for most of a 14% decline in US coal exports so far this year. Venezuela's autocrat uses crypto to fight sanctions. Facing renewed US sanctions and a weakening economy, President Maduro's government is increasingly using cryptocurrency to conduct oil sales and manage state finances. The approach aims to maintain stability under restrictions, though economists caution it may worsen inflation, opacity, and long-term economic vulnerabilities. Germany's Volkswagen loses $1.15 billion in single quarter. Volkswagen's earnings were affected by mounting challenges posed by higher US tariffs and the scrapping of a shift to electric vehicles by its luxury Porsche brand. Green Climate Fund commits $295 million for Jordan's desalination project. The grant and loan package to support Jordan's $6 billion Aqaba Amman water desalination and conveyance project is the largest investment in a single initiative by the world's largest multilateral climate fund. The project will supply water to nearly half of Jordan's population and address severe water scarcity worsened by climate change. US cuts key interest rate in bid to boost job market. The Federal Reserve cut its benchmark interest rate for the second time this year as it seeks to boost economic activity and rejuvenate the sluggish labor market, despite concerns about persistent inflation. The Fed's 0.25% cut could bring financial relief to consumers and businesses in the form of lower borrowing costs. But it also carries risks, with economists warning that lower interest rates may worsen the already rising inflation. Now for news and development. Iraq-Turkey sign water infrastructure deal. Iraq will establish a committee for water infrastructure projects and invite bids for them from Turkish companies, with payments for the projects to be financed by revenue from Iraqi oil sales to Turkey. The initial batch of projects expected under the agreement includes 3 water harvesting dam projects and 3 land reclamation initiatives. The 2025 Ecological Threat Report said the Tigris-Euphrates Basin, shared by Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran, is ranked among the top 10 transboundary river systems at highest risk of conflict worldwide due to the absence of a basin-wide governance framework. Water crisis worsens in Russia-annexed Donbass. Most of the region's estimated population of 3.5 million people are believed to be suffering from a worsening drought after years of shelling destroyed the arid region's sophisticated water supply system. Uncontrolled mining is poisoning the remaining water sources with chemicals, methane, carcinogens, and radioactive isotopes, leading experts to warn of the potential for significant environmental consequences. China pressured UK university to stop human rights research. Sheffield Hallam University halted research into Uyghur forced labour after threats to staff and blocking of their websites to cut off access to Chinese students. The university suspended the research in 2024 following defamation suits and insurance issues. Following public criticism and government intervention, including a warning to China that the UK would not tolerate attempts to suppress academic freedoms at UK universities, Sheffield Hallam apologised and resumed the study. Japan launches new cargo spacecraft. Japan's space agency JAXA successfully launched its HTV-X1 cargo spacecraft aboard the new H3 rocket from Tanegashima Space Center. The craft, expected to reach the International Space Station within days, marks the debut of Japan's next-generation cargo and rocket systems and enhances its autonomous and commercial space capabilities. Russia's interest in Antarctic oil exposed. A Russian document linked to the recent arrest of a Ukrainian scientist has raised questions about whether Russia has long-term ambitions to exploit oil reserves on the icy continent. The 3-page document, which details the allegations against the scientist, includes a statement outlining Russia's opposition to proposed marine protected areas in Antarctica. Finally, our social news, messages in a bottle from World War I soldiers. Messages in a bottle written by 2 Australian soldiers in 1916 have been found more than a century later on the country's southwestern coast. The cheerful notes were penned just a few days into their voyage to join the battlefields of France during World War I. Black vultures attack and kill US cattle. It's a problem that may grow worse for cattle farmers as the scavenging birds range expands northward, in part due to climate change. Lobbying groups have been pushing for legislation that would allow landowners to kill more of these birds, which are protected but not endangered. But experts say more research is needed to better understand how the birds impact livestock and how their removal could affect ecosystems. Bringing a forest into preschool transformed children's health. In Finland, kindergartens are exposing children to more mud, wild plants and moss, and finding changes to their health that show how crucial biodiversity is to well-being. It is part of a growing body of research linking 2 layers of biodiversity, the outer environmental layer and the inner layer within and upon the human body, including the gut, skin, and airways. Egypt's $1 billion museum opens in Cairo. After 2 decades of constructions, the Grand Egyptian Museum, the world's largest archaeological facility devoted to a single civilization, has opened near the Giza pyramids. Housing over 50,000 artifacts, including treasures of Ramesses II and Khufu, it blends cutting-edge technology with Egypt's ancient heritage to boost tourism and cultural prominence. The Maldives make it illegal for some generations to smoke. It became the first country to impose a generational smoking ban, making smoking, buying, and selling tobacco illegal for anyone born after January 1, 2007. The smoking ban comes as the latest in the country's years-long effort to crack down on tobacco and smoking. That's your Future Trends update for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with more stories reshaping our world.